Hi, I'm Drew.
And I'm Sam.
And welcome to Drewling Samantics.
Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome to my flat for, it's the third time in this current season. It's madness.
It's getting ridiculous, Sam, but why are we here?
Well, the simple reason being today is one of our best of episodes. One of the things that we look forward to more than anything else throughout the season.
Today we are here to record and give you our favourite bits, the best of the guests from season 10.
Yes, so it's time for some highlights of all our amazing guests from season 10. And I mean, we say it every time, we're very lucky that we have incredible guests, but certainly season 10 has hit the standard that we've expected and that we've kept going throughout Drewling Samantics as a whole.
We have managed to maintain, I think, not only are they interesting, exciting, but we've covered a variety of areas from the industry.
We have indeed. And that gives me the opportunity to start telling you all about them. So for those of you that haven't checked out all the guest episodes, we started off season 10 with our first guest, the incredible Mr. Allan Turner-Ward. Now, he appeared on Britain's Got Talent, getting to a semi-final, no less,
Absolutely.
and is an amazing music producer, DJ, and has a few number one hits as well across the globe.
Now, we followed that with the amazing Tony Jopia. Now, he not only is a talented producer and writer and director, he also works with film companies and other production companies from around the world. But he has a very long and interesting history. Listen closely to Tony. He's fascinating.
Yes, absolutely. Following Tony, we had the brilliant Mr. Matt Trayler. Now, Matt, a previous colleague of mine who spends a lot of his time teaching theatre and actually went out to Asia to do a lot of teaching. So he was a phenomenally interesting and experienced guest to have on and learn stories from.
Indeed. And we spoke to our next guest, Marlow. In situ, he was in his office and he provides, he is the entertainment manager for many holiday parks around the country. And he was sat in his office telling us all about the very, very, very important work that he and his team produce throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only that, a very talented Dave who I had the privilege of working with Christmas just gone. So definitely worth checking out his episode. Following on from Tyler, we had the beautiful and very, very talented Miss Paula Fareri, a stunning actress, singer and dancer, triple threat, no less, but also multilingual. So she doesn't just do it in English, she doesn't just do it in French, she doesn't just do it in... Check it out. Unbelievable.
And we finished the season with another unbelievable triple threat performer. Not only is he a singer, a dancer, a fantastic actor, he's worked with our very own Sam Dunning in Panto. He's also very young, very enthusiastic. I mean, you may want to hate him, but he is absolutely brilliant. He's a fantastic... And also, if you're watching YouTube, please, it is the brightest, most warm smile you will ever see. Fantastic. Leo Abad.
Yeah, check out Mr. Leo Abad. So those are the 6 guests from season 10. And as we said, this episode is all about going back over some of their highlights, some of the best moments they shared with us on the podcast.
Sam, I think it's time that we stopped giving them more of our wonderful selves and gave them more of our wonderful guests.
I think that's a good plan. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening and watching. We present to you the best of guests from season 10.
All right. So I'm Paula Fareri, and I'm Brazilian, but I was raised in Italy, and I am a musical theater performer. It sounds like such a title, musical theater performer. But yeah, I basically sing and dance for a living, let's say.
I think, Paula, you've oversimplified that because, I mean, you are far, far more than just a singer and a dancer and a musical theatre performer. I mean, Sam's told me so much about you, but I mean, we need to know more. So currently, where are you and what are you doing at this moment? And then we'll go back over your long, long history. So where are you at the moment? Where are you speaking from?
So at the moment, I'm speaking from Paris. I'm in the cast of The Lion King here in France as a swing cover Nala.
And there he is, bright and early. Mr. Tyler Marlow is joining us on Drewling Samantics. Hello, mate. It feels literally like about 2 months since I saw you, which is pretty much it.
Maybe that's because it is.
Yeah, but yes, for anyone that doesn't know, Tyler and I shared the stage together this Christmas just gone for 20 odd shows, something like that. Can't remember how many we did. But yeah, he had the pleasure of my company throughout the whole of December. What more could you possibly want? Well, I'll tell you what more you could want is to be on Drewling Samantics and to meet the legend that is Mr. Drew Fetish. So Drew meet Tyler, Tyler meet Drew.
Tyler, lovely to meet you, mate. Lovely to meet you.
You too.
I have to say, I mean, you're looking fresh-faced, unhassled, cool, chilled, and that after working with Sam Dunning is an achievement, my friend. It really is.
It's taken that whole 2 months to get back into it. That's what it is.
And that's the end of the show. Thanks very much. See you all next time. No, of course. But, it is brilliant to see you, mate. But for Drew, who obviously only knows of you via my high praise and reporting back on all the misbehaviour, etc. And for all our lovely listeners and watchers, give us a quick introduction to who you are, because obviously being pantomime dame is but a small part of Tyler Marlow. So go ahead.
It is indeed, yeah. Behind the bra and the wig and the big dresses, I am actually also, an entertainer. I was obviously an actor first, but I also am a head-running entertainer on holiday parks throughout the rest of the year, and head up teams of people to go and stun holiday makers and holiday home owners across the country, mostly up north these days, though I did start down in the south.
But you know what's interesting? Now, you're going to find this hard to believe, but I was actually quite shy when I was like 12 years old, and I was sent to this strange boarding school for kids that were a bit naughty, as it were. But most of the kids at the school were very urban, quite East London and areas like that. And that was the 1 year when I was very shy, and I just watched. I watched all this, and I was obsessed with a group called New Edition and New Kids on the Block, two groups, but New Kids on the Block and Bobby Brown, basically. I was just obsessed with them when I was a teenager. And so when I was 14, I was putting groups together, but I wasn't a very good singer. So I rapped. And so, when I first saw, I suppose, Fresh Prince, Naughty by Nature, Kid and Play, I don't know whether you remember them, but then especially Vanilla Ice and Hammer and people like that. And New Kids, I suddenly realised, I can be a pop star and not be able to sing. This is cool. You can actually do this and not be able to sing. But I wasn't really aware of the entertainment personality thing, but at that point what I used to do is I used to put boy groups together. So dance was my first love, and I was far too lazy to learn. I do play a bit of piano and I play a little bit of guitar, but really not good enough to play in front of someone. But I suppose I did that, and then I was playing in church halls to start with when I was like 14 and so forth, putting these groups together. And then by the time I was 17, 18, I was getting record deals. I'd hustle my way into London. And so I got a sort of production deal with a guy called Nicky Graham at one point. And nothing happened, but it was amazing to be around it. We were in Parsons Green and we're there with, Let Loose. Do you remember Let Loose? And PJ and Duncan and Anton Deck, obviously, and who have gone on to be megastars in England. But it was amazing to be around all that. But at the time, I remember thinking, I want to be further. But I was quite angry. I was actually quite an angry teenager. I didn't realise until later that the personality thing, where that came from, because I had an experience in a church, and I don't want to throw religion out to you guys or anything like that, but I had an experience in a church when I was like about 20. And all I really wanted to be in at that point was the Backstreet Boys or Boyzone. You know what I mean? That's all I wanted. I had this proper thing happen to me in a church where I heard, no, you're not going to be. But I knew I was going to be in entertainment, but it was suddenly all I saw at that point in my life was to become a pop star. And weirdly enough, I still had a number one record in Germany like 3 years later, but I wasn't a pop star. It was the song I produced that did well. I remember thinking I was a pop star, but I really, really, really wasn't at that point. So I was at the age of 20, I moved to Germany and joined a band, but then I got a job working for Walt Disney in America at the Epcot Center. And I was still pursuing the music thing because down the road was a guy called Lou Pearlman and Johnny Wright who put together the Backstreet Boys. And suddenly I've managed to hustle. I mean, one gig I had when I was younger that I was really good at, and I didn't realize I was good at when you look at yourself as a second person. I was good at hustling. I was good at just getting myself through doors, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But nothing really ever. I had a record then with them and it didn't happen. But I mean, I was around the biggest and the best in the pop industry at that time. So we got Disney there. We've got all the guys from NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, O-Town, Mandy Moore, and I'm doing a show with them over at House of Blues. But then I had to come back to England because of my visa. And then I managed to get a record deal in Germany with my song Shake the Knees. But a lot of my songs prior, and this is a good point you just made, Drew and Sam. I don't know which one of you did, but I'm just going to call you Drew and Sam. But I think it was you. No, it was you, Drew, because you said that the entertainment thing comes through in the songs. All my songs prior to that were really serious. I was doing serious rap tunes, which is pathetic for a middle-class kid from Bournemouth. But that's what I was doing. And then but that Shake the Knees song was just an 8-minute idea I had with a vinyl and just kind of looped it. But I wasn't even a DJ at this point. I was just doing music and entertainment. And then I got a job working for, like I said, going to Disney was phenomenal because at Disney, it actually wasn't that vital, even though they were so amazing, the Lou Pearlman guys and all there down the road. Being at Disney was the thing that really did it because I got to use my personality and suddenly I realized, oh, actually, this is actually more powerful than even the tunes I'm writing. And I'm not saying that to boast. I just had never done that side of the coin, if that makes sense. Prior to that, I was trying to be really pretty and be this dancer, and it was like somehow I just wasn't cutting it. And then suddenly, I was realizing I was getting this attention in a different way of making people smile and stuff like that, which was great. But then after that, I got a job working for Air Tours Holidays and Thompson Holidays as well. And I then lived in Cyprus, Greece, Spain, and Africa. And I was a double act with Alison Hammond. This morning. So we worked together in Tunisia. Were we a double act? Well, she was actually officially my boss, but there was like 3 entertainers, but we worked. She's still a really, really good friend of mine. But yeah, I got to really home in. I didn't realize how important those years were because I was on a mic all the time, every day, all day.
So the unwelcome guest has affected us in many ways, but we still kept going as a college, as people, So I did a foundation course at Lane when I trained there. And then I think it happened at the end of our training. So that was when we were supposedly going into other drama schools and auditioning for, to get into a 4-year course, the 3-year training. And yeah, it was quite difficult. It was quite strange and really saddening as well, because obviously we didn't really end on a good note in a way. So that was a bit of a kind of confusing time. But then all of my first year, we trained online on Zoom, and it was such an experience because, you work with what you've got and you have to motivate yourself, waking up in your own house and then just going down into the living room to do a class on Zoom or something like that. And it was a really weird time for all of us. So I think it was a training that I don't think anyone would ever have had who has gone through drama school. And it's just really interesting in that way.
You were catapulted into doing something that is enormously important and so incredibly rewarding, but perhaps gets very, very little publicity within the industry. It's something that actually quite a lot of people go into, or I say a lot, a select amount of people go into, but once they kind of do it, it's this enormously rewarding experience, and that is taking theatre abroad, and in particular, in your case, quite far abroad. So tell us a bit more about that.
So, yeah, I recall it was about 2016, and it was kind of like March time, and I just finished, I think it was like my second touring show, and I was on the casting websites and things like Mandy and Spotify, just applying for everything under the sun, hoping something was going to stick. And I remember a job coming up saying about looking to, has anyone had any experience teaching musical theatre? And I've had a bit of experience like teaching and working with kids in like theatre schools and stuff like that. So I was like, well, you know, this is something that's kind of fairly okay for me, and it's a paid job, so let's apply for it. Didn't think much of it. A couple of days later, I remember, I think it was like a red letter day or something for like my birthday. And I remember getting a missed call from someone and going, and I used to never pick up my missed calls, and thinking, this is an odd number, let's just see what it is. Pick it up, and this bloke on the other end, who's this casting director, going, yes, lovely, we've got this opportunity you applied for to teach and put on a show over in China. And are you still interested in the role? And I was like, oh, yes, of course, yeah. Actor voice, yes, of course, very interested. And they went, great, can you get down to the Chinese embassy tomorrow? Because we need you to go this week. So I literally put the phone down, kind of accepted it, going, yeah, why the hell not? And I remember my parents kind of going, oh, because I was with my parents at the time. They were like, oh, who's that? Oh, it's just some bloke who wants me to go to China. And they didn't believe me for about 3 days until I actually confirmed them with my plane ticket and my visa, all confirmed that I was going over to China.
On a park, I am an ants manager, and I'm also what is known as the head of department for the entertainment department as a whole. So I really see the sort of operational runnings day in, day out of my park, or whatever park I'm on during a year. And I head up a team of this year, actually, I've got 4 others on my team. So there's 5 of us in total. And between us, we sort of, we are in day, afternoon, morning and night, all that kind of stuff. Really making sure that anyone who is here on holiday, anyone who owns, a caravan or a lodge on any park, stays entertained and throughout their stay is welcomed and is made to feel like they've not only got their money's worth, but we've made an impression that could essentially last a long time. I sit here doing this role because of some people that I was met with as a child on holiday parks. And as you said, it's really a big integral part of our industry and our business. And it's a good start for a lot of people, which obviously we'll come on to in a little while.
So cut to the elephant in the room, like you said. I actually auditioned for Britain's Got Talent when I first came back from LA. And I never got past the T-boy because I was going in there as a serious DJ.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to know. They did not want to know that guy. I wasn't smiling. I was like, yeah, right, this is a good mix. And nope. And then I went again the next year and livened it up a touch and I actually did that song, Shake the Knees, and no, once again, didn't work. And then I remember I'd been living in Dubai for a while. So I was then suddenly booking gigs in Dubai to DJ for New Year's. And I had a fiance in Manchester at the time, so I had to come back there. And I remember things were, once again, a little bit ups and downs. And I realised the people that are getting the main gigs at the time was Danny Dyer. And he couldn't DJ for Toffee. But at the same time, he was a name. And it was like all these guys from Towie and all these places, they're all like, they're coming in and they've got someone else pressing the buttons for them. And they just go, all right. Which is amazing, and God bless them. I would do the gig as well if I was them. But I kind of just thought, right, if I can get some TV exposure, and then it hit me to go on Britain's Got Talent and be a bit of a Wally.
Paula, this is a silly question, but I mean, how many languages do you speak, and do you ever go? What language am I performing in?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because one time I went in, the first line of Nala is like she has the first scene where she's like Scar, and then she has a scene with Scar, and right after she has her song Shadowland that we all know, which in French is Stardom. But I do remember that one of the first time I performed it, I went in and I don't know why I wanted to start with, like, I had to take a second because in my brain I was gonna start with Nuestro Lugar, which is the Spanish version. So because I know that song in English, in Spanish, because I got cast in Spain originally for The Lion King, and in German, that's all very confusing sometimes. And recently I was at the finals for Nala for first cast in Germany. So when I went back on the Tuesdays, I had to play Nala. And even there, I was I was taking a second to realize, okay, French, get back to French, get back to the French, because you've done the same scene, the same song in German, and now you have to do it in another language. So sometimes I struggle, but
Wow.
I think it's part of the game of working in different countries, and yeah, that's just how it is.
Has it all come almost a little bit quicker than perhaps you first expected, having professional credits before you'd finished training and having a big national tour, major national tour agreed pretty much before you'd finished and graduated?
So I'm, first of all, extremely grateful that, yeah, absolutely, extremely grateful that I'm working, straight out of training. But I think that's because I've always just been kind of neutral with things. So whether I get something or not, I've just learned how to kind of ground myself and not get too excited or get too down, because as you said, when when we face rejection or when we face so many of these walls, it's so easy to just give up. But with this industry, we just need to keep going and we just need to persevere. And I think that has helped me in terms of, just getting straight into work. I will say as well, there are times as well where you give up or you think about, oh, is this right for me? Is this the right career? And especially in second year, I'm not sure if you've heard of the second year blues, which is quite common with most people. I had that big time because I did essentially 4 years of training. So when I was in my second year, it felt like my third year already.
Right.
And I felt so, I don't know, there was a lot of things that kind of pulled me back, but that helped me, like slingshotted me all the way up to my potential. Because I guess I'd say I reached rock bottom and I was just so fragile and I just felt so a bit lost in second year. Because, there's a lot of talent everywhere and, you see these people and it's incredible, but at the same time, you just think, what am I actually good at, or what's my strengths and weaknesses? But that's when, when I got through that, I just kept going. And even on this job with Shrek, sometimes you get imposter syndrome, especially in just different jobs, you get imposter syndrome. And what you got to remember is you're there for a reason and you're there because people want you.
Cool.
And yeah, you deserve it because that's why you're there. But I will say it has been overwhelming at times because it's full on, especially doing 8 shows a week. It's been tiring on the body for sure.
Yeah.
And weekly touring especially is another ball game of its own because, once you settle down after a week, you have to move straight away. And it's this constant push and pull. But yeah, I've just kind of helped myself in many ways to just kind of calm myself, or if I need to take myself away, I'll, do things for myself with friends. But yeah, it's been overwhelming to say the least, but enjoyable.
It was one of it is like I said, it's really the thing that sticks out in my career, because it's like that's a really interesting and strange thing you've done, and that's next to China as well.
Yeah.
So it was like I remember talking to it was Wagging Tongues Productions.
It was, yes.
That was the theatre company, and the woman who ran it, she was a mother of two, and she had brought up her kids over in England, from a Pakistani background, but she wanted to make sure that there was theatre that was inclusive to her kids' generations who brought up in England, but also had, the folk stories and the stories from back at home. So she basically comprised one of her folk stories from her culture into an English bit of pantomime, and she wanted to reflect, what does London actors and performers look like, and it's from all different backgrounds. So she had lots of different people from lots of different cultures. So she had someone from France, had someone from Australia, had someone from England, and then also Asian performers as well. So it was a very split down the middle mixed cast of half people, half Asian actors and half English actors. But it also showed what does English theatre really look like, because it was, you don't get just all Asian companies, you don't get all English theatre. It's like London is everyone, really.
Yeah.
And we were kind of cast as kind of in the story on Generally Jagger was a character called Billu and Gulu, who were essentially the silly Billy character mixed with Tweedledum and Tweedledee.
Yeah, I think that's a fair representation.
And I don't know if, she had cast it very well, because when we kind of because we did our auditions separately.
Yeah.
And I remember just kind of meeting Sam in the first couple of read-throughs and audition rooms. And when you just get on with someone, you just go, this is someone I'm going to have a bit of a laugh with in the pub. And we just bounced off each other really well. And I think it was just, great bit of casting that she did, that we just worked so well together.
I'm not on a show team. Running the department, I've got enough on to deal with. So my guys come in, and there's 4 shows to learn on top of all that extra daytime product, the kids products, and all that kind of stuff. And they come in the sort of end of January, beginning of February. We go away for a week to another park in the country. They rehearse it for a couple of days. They come back in their spare time. They're trying to rehearse it, and then it's on. They've got 4 or 5 shows to completely learn. And when you put 5 shows that are all nearly an hour long together to try and learn with completely set choreography, all different lyrics and different medleys and mashups, it's so much work. And it might look a little bit more simple than going to see something in the West End or whatever, but whether we've added lights or we've not added lights, or a set or a costume, the work that they put in externally, even in their own time, is just immense. And I think it really comes from, you've got to be a passionate industry person to do this job, because if you turn up and you've never done it before, or you're not that bothered about it, you're not going to put those extra bits in that you need to make yourself feel better about going on stage and making something that's really special.
It's also that thing of that you are on show all the time, aren't you? You're on duty all the time, because you step out of a chalet or a building or whatever, and you meet a member of the public. You are the face of the park, the face of the company. And the company of people you're working with.
Absolutely. You walk to work and there's kids hanging, they all know who you are. You are pretty much in the entertainment world of holiday parks. You are the face of the company, and you walk to work, and you can't have your phone out. You can't be just talking to people casually, because you've got kids banging at the caravan windows, waving at you. It's very much like being famous in the little sort of portion of the world. Because you're strolling through and they're shouting for you, they're asking for photos, they're asking you to sign their books, and it's really, really, it's not strange, but it's really sort of surreal as you're doing it. And obviously, the more and the longer you do this job, you get more used to it. But I remember when I first started, it was like, wow, they are we're idols to those children. And even if it's just for a week, they could be talking about us for the next 10, 20 years. And you've really got to make that impression, but then keep it consistent. And something I always say to my guys is to keep that consistency is the most important thing, because you can't be at work in this building and be all smiley and happy, and then they see you outside and you're there miserable, not talking to them, not paying attention to them. You've got to keep that act up, and it's something that is really, really important and is really going to impact those children for a long time to come.
And people save up hard. For some people coming for on holiday, it's the highlight of their year. A summer holiday and Christmas for people, their lives revolve around that, and they save hard. If you've got a family of 2 or 3 children, it's not cheap wherever you are, and you demand quality whoever you are. And you guys are there at the sharp end providing it, and that's a
Absolutely.
big responsibility.
And even when it is, when it's quieter and, you think it's a lot of energy doing it when there's a room full of people, but the energy is sort of having to double when there's 3, 4 tables in, because you've really got to find it from somewhere to bring it within yourself. But something I was actually talking to my team yesterday in our meeting about is because just because it's gone quiet or there's not as many people here, these people have still saved up. They have paid for a holiday. They are expecting the same quality and care and sort of excellence that we provide to groups of hundreds to them as well. And they are more than deserving of that because they are here for a reason. We run as a business throughout all of these months because we can operate as a business throughout these months. So we need to make sure that we're always on our A game. And that's something that's really, really important to me. And, with our seasons being a lot longer now, back in the day before I started doing this job, they'd sort of get a letter in February, turn up to the park in April, and then they close in October. But now, you get your placement in December, you start your training sort of middle of January, you open sometimes in February, like I was open the first week of February, and we close close to the end of November. And some parks are now staying open all year round and doing winter wonderlands and things like that. So it's not just a quick summer job anymore. It's something that's really important, and it's something you can create a career out of, but also not just a job, an actual lifestyle, and it's something you really have to accustom to.
I'm Tony Jopia, or pronounced Jopia, and I'm a film producer and director, and also a creative director. It's two sort of sides to me. One, I produce indie movies, building my way with a portfolio along with some very talented people who get involved with me to create these films that always seem to get themselves globally released. And we have some nice sort of treats to talk about that are coming up. And alongside that, I also service major broadcasters from around the world and provide all their on-air services and from trailers and promos and sizzles and whatever they need to promote their content, both on air and on social media. They come to me.
Brilliant. I mean, do you get time to breathe? I mean, you're a very, very busy man.
I am very much dedicated to my job, always have been since a very early age. The thing is, my son, I have a son who loves his tattoos, and he knows I'm not a fan, so I've not have any tattoos, but I gave him a piece of paper when he was a young boy, and it said on it, find something you love to do, and you'll never work a day in your life. So, of course, that's perfect for me because I love my job. So in terms of, do I ever do anything else? Of course. I mean, I'm a proud dad, and, I love my boys, my 2 boys, and I try and make myself available for them as much as possible. But of course, you do have to have an earning, and you have to make a business work. But I do love my job. So I do end up doing a lot of things, and it does eat up a lot of my time. But just to conclude on that point about why I mentioned about my son having a tattoo is because inevitably he got that tattooed on his arm. And it was, I suppose, quite a something that I couldn't really get angry with anyway. But I did say to him at the time when I gave it to him, so what you going to do? And he said, nothing, Dad. I said, why? He says, well, that's what I love to do. Nothing. That's not really the idea, Alex. But anyway,
Slightly backfired, maybe.
Ladies and gentlemen, we stopped briefly, not only to recharge our batteries, but to say what an inspiring story we have just had from the wonderful Tony Jopia. We have more to come from Tony. And I mean, he's such a passionate and interesting man that we could not just stop there. But we did have to stop there because my friend Sam Dunning has a passion that he needs to indulge. Sam?
Yes, I would rather top my beer up because it's looking a little low. So give me a second, I'm just going to go and do that.
Right, we'll sit here and we'll wait for you, Sam. Off you go. So Sam, we have been waiting for you. Are you fully topped up?
Yes, I'm ready to go again. And as you say, a really intriguing story from Tony there, to hear about the passion he has for his work, but also what a fabulous tribute from his son.
Absolutely.
Something that's inspiring and something that's meaningful. And Tony was full of stories like that. In fact, why don't we hear a bit more about Tony's background?
Well, if I was to go right back to the very beginning, to take you to Chile in 1967, giving my age away. Basically, according to my family, they tell me that I was 1 year old and they went to the cinema and they put me just to one side whilst they obviously dealt with something. And according to them, I walked my first steps along the cinema aisle. But that's just them. I don't know if it's truth, obviously. Can't quite remember it. But apparently gravity took its course because it was obviously slightly downhill. And I think I went and did a couple of steps and tumbled the rest of the way. I guess imitating the Rock in Raiders of the Lost Ark when it's kind of like coming out. Probably something like that. But yeah, film from the minute I arrived in this country as a political refugee. I came along with my father who left Chile in 74 with all the problems that happened there. So I was this very little young boy following in my father, really, because it was me and him. But obviously my father was the main person who had to leave. And that brought me to Liverpool, where I remember going. There was a local cinema at the time called The Classic. And really, for me, I couldn't speak any English when I arrived, but the big cinema is kind of like this opening to a world of magic and adventure. And I saw a film, and having spent a decent amount of time being escorted out by Amnesty, and going to lots of different countries, my dad took me to see Airport 75, which after spending a number of flights to get out of Chile was probably not. I mean, like, let's face it, you know what it's about, don't you? It's about this airplane, and I'm thinking, crikey, well, we were lucky, weren't we? And so we that really caught my eye. It just kind of said, I remember specifically sitting there, not being able to understand the words, but watching everybody completely engaged in this magical story with Charlton Heston. And I was thinking, that's what I want to do. And it really, I can pin it down to that movie. Of course, after that came Star Wars and Grease, another movie, and Superman. And all these movies, and one movie that very few film fans know of, which is called Damnation Alley, which starred George Peppard from the A-Team. But these films just completely transported me, and kind of I knew from that age. And in fact, I was shown once a book when I was just learning to write English, and I would have been 9 years old. And I wrote there, I want to be a film director. And my auntie kept that book for when I was 9. Wow. So I know for a fact that I knew then that one of the first things I learned to write in English was, apart from Kevin Keegan from Liverpool, was I want to be a film director. And so really from that moment, my journey began. My father was a wonderful, wonderful person who just helped me along the way. When I was, when I was 11, 12, 13, I was actually, he bought me this secondhand 8mm camera, which came with a spooling editor. So wow. He really put in place the tools for me to create, because the thing about filmmaking is you never really master the art. You can always, learn enough to do it, but every film brings new challenges. So the best way to learn to become who you become is simply by doing. So my father knew that right from the very beginning, that it was something I needed to just become used to, kind of creating and just releasing that creativity. And really after that, it was a matter of I did art. My father was a designer, a graphic designer. So art was very much in my genes as such. So that helped in terms of storyboarding. And really, not being able to speak English at the very beginning didn't matter, because creativity doesn't necessarily rely on the words that you communicate with. You can do it through pictures. And then that, of course, set me up in terms of telling stories, because filmmaking is telling stories through pictures. Of course, dialogue and so on are all part of it. But all the foundations were there.
As you said, you're Brazilian, but were raised in Italy. Did your performing career start in Italy then?
Yeah, actually, Spring Awakening was in Italy. I was in the original cast of the Italian production. We the Actually, that production was beautiful. Like it's very dear to my heart. And what I really appreciated is that the producers decided to leave the songs in English. And so we would act in Italian, but we would sing in English. And we had this massive chalkboard. You say chalkboard in English, right? With all, because of course it's in a school, Spring Awakening. Most of the play is in a school, and so we had this huge chalkboard with all the translations, and it looked like someone was writing the translations with a chalk, and like so it was beautiful. It was the beginning of my career, but also one of the shows that I keep with me, really.
I've never done the show, but I know people who have, and I know of it. It's very, very well known, and a lot of people say the same. It is the sort of thing that it's like a collective experience. People would sort of say it stays with them for many, many years, and people have made friendships through that show. It's an extraordinary show to do.
It's crazy to think that one of like my closest friends, some of my closest friends came from that period of my life or from that show. And with some of them, I'm still in contact. With some of them, I'm very, very close. Like they're my best friends. So yeah, it was beautiful. Definitely hard to do. I was 19 and I didn't have the tools to know how to separate my job from my private life. And because I was playing a character that is very tormented. I was playing Marta Bessel, which is this girl that's abused and beaten by her father. I really struggled with my private life and personal life, with the relationship with my dad at the time. And also, I think the whole cast kind of struggled to separate what we were doing on stage and what we would bring because we were on tour. So you could tell, like at the dinner table, nobody was talking after the show. It was a show that in a sense kind of consumed us the first year, and then the second year we kind of got better. We started going out and I actually separate the two things. But because it's a show that is so intense that you cannot just portray it, you have to find some truth in it. So I done interviews, and I also went to meetings of different girls that went through the same things when they were children. So that was very hard on me because, of course, I was bringing their experiences on stage, and I couldn't find Paula anymore.
And that was really cool. I mean, I'm so grateful for the experience. And actually, the year later, I did the German one, which was somewhat similar, but didn't quite work out as well. But the German one wasn't even remotely as good. But it's called Das Supertalent. Well, my family's from Germany. I haven't actually left that bit out, haven't I? I pretty much learned English when I was like 3 or 4. So I was late in German was my first language. So, but yeah, it was weird. So I went over to Germany, and that's why I had the deals in Germany and stuff like that as well. But it was so bizarre. So I got them to the semi-finals, and they kept saying to me, "Oh, do Shake the Knees," which was my song that I did in Germany years ago. And I said, "Oh, it's rubbish. I don't want to do Shake the Knees." And they kept saying, "Go on, Simon." And they knew I was and I am a massive fan of Simon Cowell. I do think he's phenomenal with what he's achieved with what he is. And he has got magic. There is a certain magic about him. And they kept saying, and they obviously knew from my outtake interviews that I was a big Simon fan. They went, "Simon really wants you to do Shake the Knees." I said, "Does he? Well, then I'll do it. I'll do it. If Simon wants to do it, definitely."
How did Dame start for you? When did you first put on the frock? What happened?
Well, and on our side of the panto world, we call it a debut most of the time, a little bit of a play on words. And my debut was very much in officially in 2017 was when I first sort of donned the frock. But before that, I was always very much I've never been shy to hide my feminine side nor the masculine, because as you'll know, Sam, I'm probably more of a bloke when I'm in a dress than I am when I'm not in one.
Yeah,
It's
I think
it's
that's a
kind of
fair statement to
insane
make.
what happened. Obviously the brilliant pantomime came to see us and they described me as a new Les Dawson, and that's very much the angle I go at with my dame. But for me, what happened was it was a combination of I've always been such a big panto goer, and panto has always been such a great part of my life, even as a kid. Every Christmas Eve we were at that panto, whether it was a local Amdram or it was a full-fledged theatre production. Obviously, I'm from the Midlands in Leicester, so we've got the De Montfort Hall panto by Imagine Theatre, and they've always done it since I was a child. But I remember actually I was only a couple of months old. I think I was probably about 9, 10 months old, and it's sort of my earliest memory of going somewhere and doing something, because me and my mum went to see Mother Goose, and it actually turned it into my favorite panto of all time. It was the first panto I ever saw, and I remember seeing that, and then a couple of years later we saw it again, and I was sort of old enough to understand what it was, what was going on, and Mother Goose came out, and I thought, That's me. I already knew I wanted to be a performer. My mum was an actress growing up. She was also a makeup artist within theatre, and she really raised us. She's now a drama and creative therapist. So I've always been surrounded by the arts. And it was something I always knew, panto for me, as well as musical theatre, which is something I also have a massive interest and history with. It was for me a way to push limits and to push boundaries and also to have fun. A lot of my part of an entertainer is I do a lot of comedy and a lot of stand-up comedy, and anyone who knows me will always say, you're the funny one of this part of the group who's on stage. I'll make the jokes, I throw all that kind of stuff out, and so I needed that platform to elevate me to be able to go on stage, make people laugh, and to have a laugh myself. And for me, the best way to do that was to be a dame. A lot of people, people like Michael Batchelor and Jamie, our friend Jamie Ryding, who are both fantastic dames within their own right, often describe themselves as professional fat blokes in a dress. And I love that term because as a bigger person, as someone who always used comedy as a way to edge into to get in with people and to create things, it was such a great way for me to go, right, I've put on a dress, I've got on a wig, I'm going to talk like this, and I'm going to say a joke, and people are going to, it doesn't matter what I say, because the minute I walk out on stage, and, we had it this year, as soon as my entrance happened, I hadn't even said a word, and people were laughing and cheering and whooping, because they see this 6'5" giant woman with massive hair and this massive frock and this massive makeup on her face, and it's hilarious. And I think for me, it was that made me go, I've got to do that, because that is me. That is me all over, and I can do that. And it's something that I owned. And then in 2017, I'd already been writing pantos, judging pantos, going and working within the industry quite a bit, and being quite obsessed with them, actually. It's one of my most favorite forms of theatre. I think it's fantastic. And I sat down and I said, look, I want to write and I want to direct this show. And so I wrote and directed Aladdin, and we needed a Twinkie. And I said, you know what? I've written the script. I've written it really accustomed to my sense of humor, especially that role. So I'm going to do it. And, I bought a load of wigs and, just cheap, like old Smithy wigs, did them all up with hairspray and all that kind of stuff, and made different outfits out of nothing, and did it. And the response I got was so amazing that I thought, I can't not do this again. And then from there on, it's just been a constant of growing, developing, and creating what as my dame. And yeah, it's just I can't actually describe the love I have for it or for panto.
Look, let me tell you this. One of the things about the films I make, one of my biggest failures, even though all the films have been made, is the fact that I probably just think too big. I should have made like 2 cast and 1 room. That's the kind of movie I should have made. Instead, I'm making an apocalyptic movie with 300 extras in a small town in Oxfordshire. And the logistics of trying to put that together, on a tiny budget, is pretty damn, worrying at the time, because how do you chaperone 300 zombies? We did actually have an offer of about 1,000 zombies, but we just couldn't have the security to accommodate that in the middle of a high street in Banbury. So I think what happened, so when I was 13, I was trying to make these films, which I suppose the closest thing would have been Saving Private Ryan, even though it hadn't even been made at that time. But I wanted to have like soldiers running across sort of the little sort of hills, and I think I went to this kind of scrapyard, and I was having people running across the top of these kind of mounts and things, diving, and I was creating bullets from. Do you remember those little things that used to pop up? You used to bend them in upside down, and then suddenly you leave them for a few seconds, and they were my bullets. So I used to put them and then put leaves on top of them, and then of course, if you have enough of them, you'd have all these little things popping up. You see.
So we've talked a lot about Britain's Got Talent, and I've told you how naughty Simon is, like with the production, but also how much I respect how he's in charge of all this nonsense. But if you watch the semi-finals, he is smiling all the way through on my performance, and even calls me a fantastic plonker. He goes, "You really fascinate me. You're a fantastic player." So it completely and utterly annihilates me on that stage. And I'm like absolutely defeated. And I'm in my dressing room, and this stunning woman comes in, and she goes, "Hi, Simon sent me to see you." I went, "What?" And she goes, "He's just told me to tell you that he thinks you're really charismatic and he can see you going a long way in life." I went, "Well, why the fuck didn't he say that on air?"
As your original role, you were a dancer, you were an ensemble member, so you had lines in songs, but going into one of the leads, you then had solo songs or duets, you had more specific lines of dialogue. Did that push you further, going, actually, I love being ensemble, but I want to be up there?
So I love this question because I always answer the same. So when people ask me, "Oh, what's your, dream role, dream job?" I always say ensemble, because for most shows, I want to say for every show, no, well, I'll say most shows, let's go safe. Most shows, 98% of shows are ensemble, driven, or not ensemble driven, but the foundation is from the ensemble, and that's what makes the show. Especially in Shrek, for example, everyone comments about, "Oh, we love the fairy tale creatures because we only appear in like 2 numbers." And it's amazing when they see everyone because we're all there as a unit. And being an ensemble as well, you've got potential, like different things to do. So sometimes you can be on stage swing or off stage swing, swinging the different ensemble tracks, or you can be an ensemble and cover a role. So covering a principal role. But being an ensemble, I think, is just so fun because you generally, not all the time, but sometimes you get to do a lot more on stage.
Yeah.
And you can, you just have a lot of fun. And there's not as much pressure as such, because you're just, you're there, but not at the forefront.
In Bodyguard, we had those big stairs in I'm Every Woman, and it was a salsa number, and we had heels on, and we had to be fabulous. We had these sparkling dresses on, and I fell from the step that was up. I fell until the last step down.
Oh, the whole
and
way.
I fell on the floor, and I thought the best idea was to just crawl and then pretend to disappear. So I didn't leave the stage. I just stayed there until one of my closest friends, also Marina Manilio, which was a dancer in that show, a swing cover, Rachel, in that show, she was dancing around me, and then she told me, "Move!" And, and she was like, "Paula, get up! You cannot just stay on the floor." And I just thought maybe no one will see me. Maybe I will save the embarrassment until the curtain closes on this number. I will stay here. But that was not possible because, of course, the dancers had to continue. But I tried.
I would always say to any future performers, always make sure that your stage and set, especially if there's runners or things move, that everything is locked in place and everything works properly. I was in rehearsal once as the Grinch. I was practicing the Grinch's part in a junior version of Zeusical the Musical. And our stage had lots of different panels that would move and sort of that. And I was going across, and I wasn't even playing the Grinch. I was directing the show, and I was showing our Grinch how to walk across the stage. And as I did it, I put my foot on the final panel, and the panel slid open, and I fell straight into the stage and was sat with my arms and legs sort of over these four corners of this big cube on the stage. Just sat there looking, thinking, I've really hurt my back, and I look like a real idiot now. And then tried to act as if that's what I wanted him to do. I said, yeah, absolutely, kick it under, sit in the stage, and that's how it should look. And so yeah, I would always say, please do make sure that everything you're using is fixed and in place, because you can sustain injuries and then have to pretend that it's part of the performance.
Wow. My father did interior design, so whenever he did a restaurant, I would make videos for that restaurant, and I think not so long ago, well, actually, it was a few years ago, but bear in mind that I worked in one of the restaurants when I was about 18, before I went off to film school, and I was just saving some money, so I was working in as many different places as I could to collect as much money as possible. And then a few years later, we had a bit of a friends reunion. Quite a few years later, some 25 years later. And my friend at the time when I was working there, so the owner of the restaurant said to me, "Oh, could you just record a little message for the happy birthday?" And it was Nicola's restaurant, and he used to, and I remember it well. Sort of, everybody at Nicola's restaurant would like to wish you a happy birthday. The kind of thing they play, and then all the staff go, "Oh yeah!" Oh my gosh! So I recorded that, and would you believe it? 25 years later, we go to that restaurant, right? Just because obviously it was a point we all used to hang out in. And it's someone's birthday. And what comes out over the speakers 25 years later, me going, "Everybody at Nicola's restaurant." And I'm going, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to quickly hide under the table."
In China, when we were doing our first big rehearsal with all the different kids, we all met up and we decided that we were going to do, as like a way to introduce and get all the kids to get to know each other, we'd all get them to learn an English musical theatre song, so that they could all kind of show off what they had been working on over the past couple of weeks. So we all chose different songs, and my two friends who were over in She Just Won, they were from Glasgow, and they decided to teach their kids anything we could do from Joseph. Yeah. And so all the kids, there were probably about 100 of them, from about 8 to about 14. And they all they started coming on stage, and it was like, right, some of the music started playing. And then it was only everyone was all being very respectful watching the kids. Yet all of us English kind of teachers started really laughing our heads off, and trying not to, because little did we know that these kids didn't have a lot of English classes before. So the first time that they were learning English words were from the drama teachers. The problem is that they were learning in a Scottish accent. So they started singing, going, "I close my eyes, do back the curtain." Like, full-on Braveheart. It was amazing. I mean, excuse my Scottish accent, but it was literally any with it was amazing. Wow. And I was just like, no, can we have this in the show? This is great.
Oh my goodness. You were literally given, it was a day's notice, wasn't it, that you'd be going on?
Yeah, so I think because our fellow actor, he felt unwell. I think it was like 2-3 days before, or just, you could kind of see it. And you just think, obviously we didn't have any understudies. So it was just like, what can we do? And, as a person and, a performer, or if you're part of a show, I think you have a responsibility to uphold it. People have paid for the seats. I think, one of you guys mentioned about, I think, it was Drew that said, audiences have paid. and they paid to come. So obviously we're only human, and if a show gets cancelled, absolutely fine. A show gets cancelled, but if there are ways that can be done, then you should absolutely go for it, because it's all about just perseverance and just teamwork to bring a show, because that's what I think theatre is, a community, and your storytelling as well, but it's also that community base. And so I just thought, and a few of us thought as well, that we should just keep it going, like what can we do? And I think I was the only castable person for that role, bar another person perhaps. So I took it upon myself to just kind of learn a bit of the script and just pick it up and just trust myself as well with learning that. But knowing that I had no pressure to do it, because I did have the option of, if we have to take it off, then we have to take it off. But yeah, I took it upon myself and just thought, actually, it's a good challenge. I do love a challenge. And if I can do it well, I'll give it a shot, because, you never know until you try. So I think it was more of I really do want to try it kind of attitude, as well as, oh goodness me, like they've just thrown me in the deep end. But yeah, I learned it, and the cast and the production were just so helpful in helping me feel at ease and absolutely doing what I can. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Do you know what, Drew? I think Leo has brought us to the perfect end there, because he talks about 3 incredibly important things within the industry. So he started off by mentioning the responsibility to an audience, which we all feel. We want them to have the best possible time and the best experience, because that's why they paid their money, that's why they've gone along, that's why they're supporting us. Equally, he then talked about the camaraderie and the support from your fellow actors, those on the stage with you or backstage or in the production team. Everyone works together as a unit to try and create things and to try and give the best experience for everyone. And finally, there's nothing like giving it a go. I mean, every part of what we do is all about putting yourself out there, stepping into things that perhaps you haven't done before, or certainly being out of your comfort zone and just trying things out. And if you don't try, you can never succeed. So what a perfect way, what a brilliant summary for the end of our Best of Guests episode.
And also, Sam, everyone, a perfect summary of Drewling Samantics itself.
Go on, tell me how so.
We feel a responsibility to our viewers and listeners. We bring them great guests and great content every week. We have fantastic camaraderie between the two of us. We do enjoy doing this stuff.
Yes, of course.
And finally, I mean, let's face it, we always try and give it a go, don't we? We really do.
We've been doing that for a long time.
We've been doing that for a long time.
Yes, and it's made far easier by the fact that we do have unbelievable guests joining us, particularly our season 10 guests, not because they were necessarily any more impressive than previous, but they are the most recent, and we thank them immensely for everything they've done. So another massive thank you to each and every guest that joined us on this season. So that's Allan, Tony, Matt, Tyler, Paula, and of course Leo as well. Thank you all so much for joining us. Yeah. And that's pretty much it for this episode, isn't it, mate?
Except to say, please join us next week for the next episode, because it's the best of Sam and Drew. What more would you want?
Yeah, I mean, you've lost them all now. That's it. Audience is
gone, haven't they? They're gone.
We've got a week off after that,
but
they're all going to have 2 weeks off because no one wants to see the best bits of us again. No, please do come back and join us next week for our Best of Us episode. Highlights from season 10 of all the episodes where it's just been us. Some of the conversations, debates, arguments, and quite a lot of the Mickey taking as well.
Yeah, and you'll see that we really try and, give it a go.
Yes. So thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure as always to have you in our audience, listening and watching. And we'll see you next week for the Best of Us. Cheers. See you later.
Cheers, everyone. See you later.
Thank you for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed this special highlights episode of Drewling Samantics.
If you have, then make sure you go and watch all our previous episodes in full for even more fun and interesting content. Please consider subscribing to our channel too, and you'll get notified every time a new video is released.
Don't forget we're also available as audio only. Just search Drewling Samantics in any good podcast app. And we'd love your support on social media as well. We're on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and all our links and handles are on the screen now.
We love welcoming new followers and subscribers, so please share with your family and friends, and we'll be eternally grateful. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.